Okay. I think it's working. An error occurred. Please try again later. Weird. Well, this seems to be working. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Can anybody hear me? I guess that's a good question. And if so, can you also see me? Hopefully. We shall see. Well, the ad's on, and that means something. Let's see here. We can hear. All right, well, that's good. Yeah, the streaming, there's like two screens that I have open when I'm streaming, two different tabs, and the first one, which is the back-end YouTube one, as soon as I hit record or start streaming, it said, oh, an error has occurred. But then the other screen seems to be fine, and you guys can hear me, and so we're just going to ignore it. That's the best way to handle technology sometimes. There you go. All right, good to hear. Good to hear. Good morning, Minions from Columbus, Ohio. Been up since 3 a.m. working on zombicide scenery. Nice. Morning from Richmond, North Carolina. We've got AV reception. Good to hear. Got another person from North Carolina. There you go. Morning from Frozen, Wyoming. Yeah, it's actually not bad here today. It's going to be in the 20s, somewhere in the mid-20s, I think, Fahrenheit. Tomorrow it's going to be gross. Like, it's going to be, from what I understand, tomorrow it's going to be a high of like 4 or something like that. So that's no good. But then it'll get better again. Let's see. Love a good janky error message. They are the best. Absolutely. How you doing, VJ? Morning from Henderson, Nevada. Morning from Newfoundland. Boston. Nice. West Midlands, UK. Leicestershire. I think I mispronounced that, but that's okay. Let's see here. Very cold Northern Virginia. Morning from Managua. How you doing? Backwards, South Carolina. Hello from Romania. Nice. South Carolina. Also, got a couple of South Carolinas right in a row there, almost. Lexington, Kentucky. How you doing? The not this year, but I think next year, 2023, the Game Manufacturers Association, GAMA, they have their big trade show. It's called the GAMA Expo, and I think in 2023 it's moving to Lexington, Kentucky. It's in Reno, Nevada this year, and it's not a gaming convention; it's a trade show thing. So it's businessy, but still, it's yeah. I've never been to Lexington, so in theory, we'll be going hopefully in 2023. Greetings from Plymouth. I certainly hope I should play Marvel Crisis Protocol. I got it for Christmas. Nice. I already had to. It's 2 a.m. I've already had to pop on the aircon, so I have the opposite of the 4 degrees issue. Well, I mean, yeah, you guys are going into summer or are in summer right now, whereas we're in winter because of the way globes work and stuff. From what I've been told. Let's see here. This is my first live show, so there's that. Nice. Good to have you. Winnipeg, Alberta, Finland, Northern New York. I'm bundled up this morning. Yeah, I usually am too. I'm basically, once it becomes fall, then it's hoodie weather all the time for me. And it depends. Like if I'm going to be down in the basement for a long time, then it's a thicker hoodie. This is a pretty thin one. Man, on Friday, because it was real cold on Friday, and after streaming on Twitch for 3 hours, by about that 2-hour, 30-minute mark, all of a sudden I was just like, I think the furnace is broken because, man, my legs are cold. Holy man. And then I came upstairs and the furnace kicked in like when I came upstairs after 3 hours, and I was just cold for a long time. And it was just because it was just cold. It's really cold in the basement. I was just down there sitting in one spot for, 3 hours. So there's that, I think. I should probably wear long underwear. Good morning from Illinois. How you doing, Cinnamon? Cheers from Atlanta. Morning from Milwaukee. How you doing, Jesse? Have you heard that Asmodee bought Miniature Market? Yeah, I heard about that relatively recently. And now somebody bought Asmodee, so it's a whole, I don't know. But yeah, I did hear that Asmodee had bought Miniature Market. Maybe in the beginning of 2021 is when it happened, but I just heard about it recently. I don't know. Hungary, how you doing? Winnipeg, Greece. Happy to catch a live stream or stream live. There you go. Hello from Northern Illinois. It's not Illinois. Italy. Northern Italy. Just finished up suburban style table for a future game of Weasel Attack. Nice. Winnipeg. Currently 3D printing a barber shop for Crisis Protocol. Well, you know those superheroes, they need to have their gotta get the hair done. I understand that. Panhandle of Florida, opening the BattleTech, a game of Armored Combat box. My first BattleTech in over 25 years. Nice. From Russia with love. Nice. Good afternoon from Poland. Luckily, I am nearly immune to cold. Unluckily, I live in Florida. That is an issue there. Let's see here. Good morning from sunny New Orleans. Will there be any Rain in Hell events at Adepticon this year? Not that well. Maybe not official ones. We have Vince and I have talked a little bit about trying to and we've already talked a little bit with the folks from Adepticon. We don't want a booth. We don't want to be in a booth. We're just like, no, that's fine. But we would like to potentially, on Friday and Saturday night, maybe run an event upstairs in the open gaming area. And from that area where people are playing and we're doing demos and stuff like that, maybe in the evening, we'd also still like to be able to sell the game, but we don't want to do it without permission. You know what I mean? Like the reason that you can't just walk around and just sell stuff to people at Gen Con or Adepticon or these big conventions without being in a booth is it's like a licensing thing and this and that. So we want to pay Adepticon to be able to do that. We just don't want to sit in a normal booth in the vending area because we got stuff we want to be doing during the day. And we may only do it one night. Maybe only maybe a pop-up booth is what we might call it. They have those pop-up stores and stuff like that you hear about, in the fashion industry. Yeah, we had a pop-up booth. It would just be on Saturday night. I don't know. We're not 100% sure on it yet, but we have talked a little bit with, I've emailed or texted or something, Hank and Matthias from Adepticon, and we're going to figure it out before Adepticon is the plan. Let's see here. Good morning from Macomb, Illinois, Berlin, Germany, Detroit. How does Superman get his hair cut? Asking for a friend. I have heard that he cuts his own hair with his laser eyes. I could be wrong on that. He bounces it off a mirror or something like that. I don't know. That or supercuts. I mean, honestly, really. I think that seems like the obvious answer is supercuts. I collect the MCP minis, but have yet to play the game. Well, I mean, and so I bought the starter box for Marvel Crisis Protocol Lunchtime Rainbow back at the beginning of 2020. Well, not the beginning, but the beginning of the pandemic. So probably March or April of 2020, I was like, well, geez, I better get myself a project. It sounds like we're going to be locked in here, staying in our houses for nearly a month. Anyway, but I bought it. I picked it up at my local game shop just before things started to close, and I haven't opened it. So because as it turns out, I have a basement full of stuff to paint. As it turns out, and more of it keeps coming. Yeah, but so I've been wondering about that. Hey, Uncle Adam, any thoughts on Mini Wargaming's Veil Touch miniature line on GameFound? I have seen the renders and things like that, and I've been talking a bit with Dave, and he is going to, I believe, send me some of the models. I looked at the line, and I was like, I kind of think these are really cool. These particular ones, they're kind of more like cultists, sort of, and so I think that he said he was going to send some to me, and then I think I might even paint them on Twitch or something like that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyone else notice that the audio level changes as Adam moves his head? What do you mean? Because the microphone's over here, so if I turn this way, it probably gets quieter. I'm also using a new, so this is a Blue Yeti mic, which I've been using for years and years and years. Logitech bought Blue Microphones, the company that makes it, I don't know how long ago. And now they've got this new piece of software that you can use that kind of helps to get rid of background noise, and it helps to like tweak your voice, and you can EQ and things like that. And I'm using it for the first time today, so let me know. I did a quick recording before the show started to see the difference, and this is when the furnace was running. The furnace just shut off, and you could hear the furnace in the background, probably like you have been able to for as long as I've been doing the show. But with this special software, it just when I clicked the button and said engage, it just took out the furnace noise altogether. So let me know how the audio is, because it's it's a thing. Let's see here. Why doesn't this let me scroll? All right. Good morning from sunny mid-70s North Florida. Finally got a box of Wargames Atlantic figures, the Eisenkern Panzerjägers. I think I have a box of those, actually. Very cool, fine detail. No anti-tank weapons. That does seem strange for the name of that. Yeah, that's a good point. I stopped playing 40k years ago, but Grimdark from One Page Rules has really brought me back into sci-fi battles. Yeah, the One Page Rules stuff is very cool. MCP is a fantastic game. Excellent skirmish rules, fantastic minis, easy to pick up. 10/10 would recommend. Nice. Are they still adding more sets and minis to Crisis Protocol? Oh, goodness, yes. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah, that's my local shop has got an entire section that's just all Marvel, whatever, and MCP, buildings and scattered terrain and tons of different people. Like, I have the starter box, and I also have, I think, the Hulk and maybe Venom that I got from Adepticon, like in the swag box and stuff like that. I think that's what I've got. I think that's all I have. Morning from Puerto Rico. Let's see here. MCP gets multiple new models every month. Yeah. Do you have a video about your airbrush care? I did 6 videos about airbrush. I don't remember if I did one about cleaning. If not, I should. And if I did, it probably needs to be updated. But there you go. I just started playing recently. It's a fun game. My only complaint is that certain cards are within boxes of models that you might not want, similar to Star Wars X-Wing. I had not known that. That's a bummer. Happy New Year from Ireland. Let's stick around watching West Ham on TV for the next 45 minutes. West Ham. Like a pig that lives in the West? I don't know what that is. Sorry. Lower to the left. Yeah, I mean, probably that makes sense. Sound more bassy. Yeah, I could probably tweak it a little bit too, I think. Equalizer. I could lower this. I mean, my voice is a little bassy anyway. There's that. So, but yeah, in theory, I should be able to mess with it on the fly. We will see if that works. Now I've lost my chat window. There you are. Okay. Definitely the software's filter is kicking in. It's working real bad. It's not doing good. Is that what you're saying? Lower pitch tones fade in and out, making you sound tinny at times. I mean, I can turn it off, but we're going to get some awful noise when everything else kicks in, like the furnace and all that kind of stuff. You should probably be picking up computer noise now too. I've lost my chat window again. There we go. Let's see here. Working on some Stormcast's court reporters for Warcry. Oh, nice. Let's see here. I advise against MCP unless you have an awesome community. It's very much the old War Machine competitive mindset carryover. I personally don't like that, but you can have fun. Hey, Tick, how you doing? To be perfectly frank with you, well, we have some people here who are playing it just for funsies. Not a huge community, but there is a community that I've been seeing at the game shop. I got to be honest. My main thing is I'm kind of interested in trying to paint some of it and painting it weird. Like, I don't want them to look comic booky, and I don't want them to exactly look movie. I kind of want everybody to look like at the end of the movie when everyone's all beat up. That's kind of what I want to paint them as. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. I'm still not sure. Like I said, I went to go see the movie last night. I went and saw the Pete Spiderman movie, and it was good. I liked it. And so I was thinking about that. And I was like trying to think of the subject for today's show and whatever. And I was like, I don't know. And, I got the box. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Way worse than that you turned it off. See, that's what I was wondering. So I can turn it back on. There we go. we'll see what we get with that. Question a bit off topic. Is there going to be any kind of a video of airbrushes, compressors, and basic airbrushing techniques? Or, my bad, you already have made one and I missed it. So I've got a series of 5 or 6 videos, I think, that are about airbrushing. So you could check those out on the YouTube channel. But that being said, I am thinking about, at least this year, I want to think about start maybe making some updated ones and stuff like that. I did just recently pick up one of those airbrushes with the little tiny compressor that's like attached to the bottom of the airbrush. It's like the size of maybe like a Red Bull can, you know, like that kind of small little round can. And it screws onto the bottom of the airbrush, and then it's compressor and the airbrush all in one thing, and it runs on a battery, a rechargeable battery. And I kept seeing ads for them on like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, and it was really cheap. And I was like, I'll give it a try. Let's see. And I've messed with it a little bit. The airbrush is garbage, but the upside is that the compressor can be put onto regular airbrushes as well. So maybe that'll be good. I've messed with it a little bit either way. So what's the name of the software update for Blue? I have the Yeti needs background knocked out. It's called Logitech something or other. G-Hub, maybe? I think it might be called Logitech G-Hub or something like that. If I mouse over, does it? Yeah, Logitech G-Hub. That's what it tells. That's what it is. I am thinking the G is for gaming, but I could be wrong. All right, there we go. Background noise is less disturbing. That noise level changing effect constant. But yeah, I'm gonna keep messing with it, try to figure out how to do, you know, how to get the audio tweaked. Eventually, I'll just use a better mic probably. This Logitech, or sorry, Blue Yeti is fine, but I do want something that's more of a dynamic mic eventually. Just got an Anycubic 3D printer and have gone insane printing everything. Slowing down to paint it all. Doing aliens-inspired space Hulk game. Nice. Let's see here. I like to hear the furnace sound. It's good to know you are keeping warm. Oh, I'm keeping warm. It's fine. Ninjan just did a video about that compressor. Oh, all right. I hadn't seen that one. Huh. Yeah, I mean, well, maybe I don't do a video about it then. I mean, it's fine. I messed with it some, and it's fine. But yeah, it was just one of those things that I'd seen, and I was just like, oh, I should check it out. Any suggestions on where to look for a sculptor for hire to do a one-off STL for a mini? Ugh, good luck. Honestly, it's a situation right now where many of the sculptors, specifically the ones that are good, and even the ones that are like, okay, they are very busy doing their own Patreon, or or they also do something called Tribes too, which is like Patreon, but it's run by My Mini Factory. So you're starting to see some of the bigger folks start to move over to the My Mini Factory thing, because I don't know if they necessarily make any more percentage. I think they might, but it's also just way easier to like have, because right now the way it works is that if you're following somebody on Patreon who's a sculptor, from what I understand, then they have to take the information from Patreon and then manually dump it over to My Mini Factory. Then My Mini Factory has to email those people and say, here's the link and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. With Tribes, from what I've been told, it's just way easier to just be like, you're already on My Mini Factory, you're following them. As soon as the stuff gets released, it automatically gets sent to you. The links are there. It's a whole thing. It's all the same account. But nonetheless, sculptors are very busy right now just making bank because they've got people following them and stuff. And so they're not usually looking for commissions right now, which is, a bummer if you're looking to get somebody to sculpt something for you. But, there it is. The compressor is awesome. I use the same thing with a different airbrush than what arrived in the box. Oh, yeah, the air compressor thing. Yeah. Is the battery life on the compressor decent? I travel for work and would love a portable solution. I guess I didn't mess with it for a super long time. But then again, I don't usually airbrush for like... Every once in a great while, I will airbrush for more than an hour, but it's pretty rare. It's only if I'm doing like a big project. Like I've got my next Warcry project. Yesterday I worked and put skulls on their bases here and there. Not on every single base. You don't want to go overboard, even though they're corn, skulls for the skull god. or whatever, skull throne, skull face, whatever. But my point is that I'm going to have to prime all those guys, and it's not going to be just like, oh, I'm priming them black, but I'm also doing zenithal, all that stuff. And there's 18 models, I think. So yeah, we'll be doing that. Nick on patrol. Oh yeah, my wife is playing. Her mom is a organist at a church, and my wife is playing along with that. And also, I think maybe there's a pianist as well. So it's maybe organ, pianist, and cello. So yeah, so Nick is out, and we'll be back soon. Checking in from Italy. Just saw the title of the video. My answer was, why CP when you have Legion? I don't know. Well, again, because I didn't go see a Star Wars movie last night. I saw that Pete Spiderman movie, and so that was part of the thought. And I already have a 800-ish point list of Galactic Empire for Legion painted. There's like one model I got to finish, but other than that, basically. But there hasn't been a lot of people playing it around here that I've seen. I've seen more people playing the Marvel game lately, actually. So that's interesting. Let's see here. I like MCP because alternating activation puts the built-in catch-up mechanics, means 1/3 of your army won't get shot off the table when you get to play with them. Yeah, that's true. My mini factory gives 90% to creators. I think that's not a huge difference from what Patreon does. So at least that seems to be comparable. I'm pretty sure that's pretty close. I wonder if in another year or two enough sculptors will be around who don't have a Patreon so you can hire them. I mean, I don't know. It's a good question. My mini factory only takes 10% from what I understand. I can honestly say that releases. I know that for sure with their regular stuff. Like if you just said, upload a bunch of STLs and then sell them, that I knew they took 90%, but I didn't know about tribes if that was the case. Let's see here. Jez Hunt says you get about a half an hour out of a charge. Okay. My little compressor lasts me for about 2 hours. Nice. My mini factory charges $24 a month to use their service, so those 3D modelers have to turn out a ton of models just to break even. I don't know about a ton. I mean, especially depending on if you've got enough people following you. You know what I mean? Are you going to look at the new Planet 28? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. Do you paint or play 150 millimeter? That sounds huge. No, I haven't played anything like that large. That's because if a 28 millimeter guy is this big, then that's got to be like this. I don't even know. That's no. Should I wear goggles when airbrushing? I don't know that you need to. No. I mean, I wear glasses, I guess, but I don't think you have to worry about that. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Definitely you want to wear some sort of face covering, like one of those kind of rubbery kind of things with the filters on the side is what I use. And that's just to keep particulate out of your lungs, or at least the majority of it. But like fumes is not an issue with airbrush because you're using generally compressed air. So it's just air that was in the room anyway that just got squished, compressed, and then sprayed out your airbrush like that. And so there's that, but I don't know. MCP looks great, but I'm planning to play with my Marvel United Chibi minis. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, the Marvel United. Yep, that's what they're called. Had my first game of the year and first one in a long time last night. Rangers of Shadow Deep was excellent fun. Nice, good to hear. Good to hear, Jez. We had a wicked game of Gaslands Friday night, much carnage, and a chain reaction explosion that destroyed 4 vehicles. Could have been a scene out of a pretty wild action flick. Nice. Let's see here. I struggle with the Star Wars Legion game. The IP feels a lot more restrictive when compared to 40K, which is a buzzkill for my creativity. I mean, I don't know. I don't think you need to feel restricted by it if you don't want to, honestly. Like with my Star Wars Legion, Galactic Empire army, I've got a unit of, what are they? They are generally known as snow troopers, right? From like second movie, from Empire Strikes Back with Hoth and all that stuff. But all the rest of my, all my bases are desert bases, and my like board that I'll be playing on, the 3 foot by 6 foot like mat, is desert, and everything's going to be desert. So I'm like, well, the snow troopers are going to be real sad hanging out in the desert. So I painted them tan and have decided that they are extreme environment troopers or dangerous environment troopers or something like that. Sometimes it's snow and then they wear white, and then other times it's sand and then they wear tan. And my scouts are also tan. The regular just garden variety stormtroopers are just always white because they don't bother. Basically, the military doesn't bother to give them special suits. They're just like, yeah, white's fine. You'll be great. It'll be great. You just go out there and they'll be like, well, we kind of stand out against the sand. And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. So, yeah, so I don't see any problem with changing things the way you want to change them, honestly. Warning from Houston, Texas. Currently working on a Kraken ship that was just 3D printed. Nice. Hope you have a great week. Well, same to you as well, Arthur. What's the best way to start with MCP? I think it's probably to get the starter box, which has a little bit of terrain in it, and it has a bunch of good guys and bad guys, I guess. So, yeah. Just wondering if you have any quick terrain building tips. Looking to spruce up my games a bit. Terrain building tips. I don't know. I got to be honest. If you have the access, or if you got somebody who's got a 3D printer, 3D printed terrain is pretty nice. It's a lot of fun to paint. It's pretty easy to use. If you're looking to scratch build terrain, then I think the biggest thing to do if you're scratch building terrain is to think about embellishing your terrain. If you just decide, I'm going to make a ruined corner of a building, you take 2 pieces of foam core and you kind of put them at a 90-degree angle, and you put a floor in there and a bottom, and you cut a couple of holes for windows and paint it gray and call it good. Okay. But if you look at buildings, they always got stuff stuck to the outside, conduits and electrical junction boxes and HVAC and all kinds of stuff like that. So if you're building things from scratch, if you're scratch building terrain, glue stuff to the outside of the building. If you can find cool things that actually look like a junction box or look like some conduit, or whatever, add stuff to a building. Even if you're just like cutting out windows, put in a little piece of cardstock to make it like a window sill. Don't just like be like, oh, here's a hole. Like, do some like molding work and stuff like that. Add a little bit of embellishment to buildings when you're scratch building stuff, and they will look a lot more realistic and more immersive, I guess. That's my personal preference. There were beige troopers in Rogue One. I think those were shore troopers, right? I think that's what they were called, which I thought was very specific. They're like the shore troopers. You start to like leave the shore. They're like, sorry, we got to stay here. We're shore troopers. We have to stay on the shore. We can't go in the water. And we can't go into the tree line. We're just basically beach troopers is what we are. And I need the suit has sunscreen built into it on the inside so we don't get burned. Like, that's the whole idea. Also, one arm is a blaster that shoots out maybe, fire, and the other arm has got daiquiris in it or something. I don't know. I thought that was odd myself. The advice I heard was not to care how something is supposed to be painted. Paint your Black Templars green. No one will arrest you. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I just got an airbrush and a spray box. Nice. But do I need to use the exhaust vent for the box if I'm just spraying acrylics? So, like, technically, no. I have seen people who will take, so you got to just spray thing, and then there's a hose that comes out the back, which some people will say, okay, cool, I'm going to blow that out the window. If you were using spray can, in that spray booth thing, then I would say absolutely point that stuff out the window. And the reason for that is because what you're trying to do is the propulsion, the fumes from the propulsion, you are trying to suck out of the house, let's say. So having that fan and having it blow outside, yeah, not a problem. Otherwise, no. Like, the idea then, if you're just using acrylics and you're using an airbrush, then you don't have to worry about fumes because it's just, again, like I said, compressed room air. And the filter that's into the thing is designed to try to catch the particulates, the paint flecks that are flying around in the sky. So that's fine. Like, I've been to, I think at Nova Open several years ago, they had like the hobby area and where people could go and paint and work on stuff and things like that. And they just had a couple of like spray booth, one of those same kind of spray booths that you see just sitting on conference tables with airbrushes next to them. And so you could just go and spray stuff and whatever. And they weren't like ventilated out. It's just we're trying to not get this entire conference room filled with paint dust. So we use that, you turn on the thing and it sucks in there. I've also seen people take the exhaust hose and then just literally put it into like a cardboard box with a bunch of wrinkled up like newspaper or paper towel or something like that. So if any particulate paint gets through the filter and goes down the hose, it just blows into this box and then probably ends up on top of the in the paper towel. End of the day, you could airbrush without one of those things, like in your living room or your dining room. Things are going to get dustier, and it's not going to be normal dust, which is made up of skin flakes and weird stuff like that. It's going to be paint dust, so you could wipe it down and it would probably be fine. So. Before you play MCP, you should check out Agents of Sigmar playing MCP using Lego. It's a fun bat rap. Agents of Sigmar. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that channel. Let's check them out. The Empire was all about reusing the right scalpel for the job. Well, sure. Archipelago troopers, sure. Yeah, I could see that. Lawn troopers, I could see that. Prairie troopers, sure. Shore troopers were in Rogue One. Snow troopers were only snow troopers because you saw them on Hoth. They are modified for various climates often. See, there you go. Beach troopers. I've never used the hose vent on my booth, but I have a tendency to use mine in the garage with the door open. Well, then, yeah, you wouldn't really need to, I suppose. If you're not going to use some kind of mask, then you'll want to use the vent to pull the particulates away from where you breathe. Yeah, even with the hood thing, filter doohickey, I would still wear a mask personally, but that's just me. I find MCP remarkably soothing because of painting one character at a time instead of batch painting teams. That, I think, would be a problem for me. I don't like to paint one miniature at a time. I don't mind hopping around. I mean, hopping around's fine, but it's not like if I'm painting a team and they all kind of look the same because they're all wearing uniforms, which are uniform. Then okay, blue hats, and you got a bunch of guys, and that's fine. But I also can be like, all right, I'm going to work on Hulk's pants, and then I'm going to work on Iron Man's face, and then I'm going to work on, because I still always want to be working in some sort of assembly line just because I don't want to sit there and wait for Hulk's pants to dry. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, I got stuff to do, so I'll keep moving on. Just sold my 40K stuff to double down on MCP and a few other games. Nice. Anyone know a good rules-only game for dungeon crawling that is easy to get into? Printing my own dungeon tiles, having my own models, no need for a big game box, ideally cooperative. Rules-only game for dungeon crawling. Dungeon crawling, I don't know of anything off the top of my head. Rangers of Shadowdeep, Frostgrave, both of those specifically. Rangers of Shadowdeep, I think, could maybe be modified for that. It's potential. And that's a cooperative game or solo, so. Hobby exclusively in my garage. When I spray, I turn on a fan and open the garage door for a while after painting. Depending on how cold it is outside, fumes aren't a problem. That's nice. Yeah, no, I can't really do that here. Let's see here. Several things I would do as Commander-in-Chief of Stormtroopers. Number one, compulsory accuracy training. Sure. Get forest troop uniforms issued in olive drab or green. Several more that I won't bore you with. That's fine. I did order the texture rollers I brought up a few weeks back. Still waiting for delivery. Yeah. Things are slow these days. I feel like the janitors in the Death Star should have been called pooper troopers. Nice. Let's see here. I was hoping to get set up in my closet workshop and there was no one to vent. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. Got some alternative Tau models from Wargaming exclusive this week. They look amazing. Nice. Yeah, I've been seeing some stuff from Wargaming exclusive. Well, no, I'm thinking of Wargames Atlantic. That's what I'm thinking of. But yeah, I've seen stuff from Wargaming exclusive too. I own, what did I buy from them? Chaos Obliterators that I thought were really good. Four Against the Darkness. That's a good point. Four Against the Darkness is also a good. I mean, it's a little bit more RPG-like. It's not so much a miniatures game, I think, but yeah, it's still definitely dungeon crawl. But I don't know if it's co-op or is it just solo. I don't know. Got Maze Rats cheap, but read about Rangers as well. Nice. Any tips on where to get nice detailed 15mm miniatures for Song of Blades and Heroes? I don't know really much of anything about 15mm stuff. I know a lot of people who are into 3D printing are taking regular stuff and shrinking it down and then printing it that way. But I don't know much about just straight up regular like 15mm like manufacturers and things like that. Yeah, I've never really played anything that size. Played Stargrave the other day, and someone shot Eisenhorn's dog, and after that, I got a little bit John Wick. That'll happen, definitely. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't shoot John Wick or Eisenhorn's dog, or John Wick's dog, certainly. Let's see here. For dungeon crawl rules, I recommend Frostgrave Perilous Dark. I don't think I have Perilous Dark. Song of Golden Darkness. Oh yeah, that's right. Song of Golden Darkness is a dungeon crawl. I don't know that that's really co-op. I mean, you could make it co-op. You can make anything co-op if you have some imagine and believe in yourself. Decided as a new lockdown gift to myself to put my entire Amazon gift list into my cart and pull the trigger. So many great new board games. Oh, that's cool. Finding 15mm miniatures for anything other than World War II is very hard here. Nobody carries anything other than Flames of War. Yeah, no, that's true. Have you played many games of Legion yet? No. I've played 2 demos. I think 2 demos. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then the pandemic started, and I started, no, I think I started painting those actually before the pandemic, but I got them finished, other than that one pesky medical droid. I got them finished basically during the pandemic, but now I haven't really played, so, with my stuff, Can anyone recommend a good scanner for a 3D printer to scan 25mm minis and make them bigger? I don't know anything about scanners for 3D printing, no. Just bought a Blue Yeti mic due to your comments earlier. I think you're coming in loud and clear. I'm impressed by how affordable they are, although this is my first mic and nothing to compare. Yeah, I mean, like, when I'm doing Twitch, I use instead of a Blue Yeti, like condenser style mic, what I use is what the heck do I use? I use, it's an Australian company called Rode, R-O-D-E. And I own a bunch of their mics actually for different things, but like for Twitch, I use a mic called a Rode Procaster, and the Procaster is not a USB mic. It uses something called XLR, which is a much bigger round plug that has like 3 pins in it, and so you have to plug that into the mic, this big thick cord, and then you have to run it to a USB interface, which is kind of like a mixer sort of, and then that you plug the XLR into that, and then that gets plugged into your computer via USB. And then the benefit of that big mixer too, because this microphone is massive and whatnot, is that it has to send electricity back up the cord called phantom power, which sounds scary, but it's actually not, I don't think. But yeah, you send phantom power back to that microphone to power that microphone. But that microphone is a dynamic microphone. So what that means is, instead of a condenser microphone like what I have here, like the condenser microphone picks up a lot of room noise. Dynamic microphones, you've got to be like real close. So whenever you see like a podcaster like Joe Rogan or one of those people in videos, and they got that mic like right here, and when they move away, it gets real quiet quickly, that's because it's not picking up a lot of extra room noise. It picks up noise just right here. Normally you need something between the microphone and like a bigger microphone like that, like the Rode Procaster. You need an extra power booster doohickey between the microphone and the USB interface. And so, yeah, it's a whole thing. So you buy the microphone, but then you're like, oh, but I also need now this other thing, which costs like another $170. That microphone was like $270. Then there's $170 for the cloud lifter. And then the interface is another, I don't know, $200 or more. So it's a whole thing. Mantic's Dungeon Saga is a competitive or a cooperative dungeon crawler. That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. That box for Dungeon Saga is so cool because it looks like a giant book. It's really, really well done. Adam, your thoughts on Book of Boba Fett so far? I've not watched it yet. We are currently watching Wheel of Time. I was like, Song of Wheel of Time. No, that's not right. Wheel of Time. Yeah, Wheel of Time. We're watching that. It's on Amazon. I don't know. It's okay. It's yeah. So we're gonna finish that, and then we'll probably go into Book of Boba Fett. Let's see here. What was the portable compressor you were all talking about later? I just found it on some weird random Facebook ad or maybe Instagram. I don't remember what. And I just was like, okay. But I just kept seeing them all the time. So I pulled the trigger. And it had built in, it's got like interchangeable, rechargeable batteries that snap onto the bottom. Maybe with a magnet? I don't know. So far, it's okay. I mean, I still prefer my regular compressor, but, Rode mics are fantastic. Used to use them a lot in my former life as a conferencing tech. Yeah, no, I've got like a couple of their shotguns, NTG 4 Plus, and I got 2 Procasters downstairs and all that kind of stuff. I assume a Procaster is something a professional caster would use. Yeah, like if you're like a wizard and but you get paid for it and you're a professional caster, then that's what you use. It's true. Phantom Power is all fun and games until it goes into an iPhone or into a lighting rig. Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. Phantom Power was also a pretty good album from the Tragically Hip. Oh, really? Thanks for the info. Now I need to find your Twitch channel. Well, I've got a button for that. Boom, there you go. I stream on Twitch on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time, so tomorrow night. And I also stream on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Time. I usually go for about 3 hours on each one of those. And right now, I am in the process of painting Skaven for my Warcry warband. I should write it down. Let's see here. I've got a Stormcast warband for Warcry. I've got a Plague Monk Skaven warband for Warcry. I've got a Nurgle warband for Warcry. I have Chaos, Slaves to Darkness. They're finished as well. And then I have Ossiarch Bone Reapers. So currently I have 5 finished Warcry warbands. Warcry these days is the game that I'm playing most, if I'm perfectly honest. And then currently right now I'm working on a second list, basically, a second roster of Skaven that'll have... It's got like 11 clan rats. It's got a Grey Seer. It's got a Warplock Engineer, Storm Fiend, one of those big robot rats, and Warp Fire Thrower. Now, I can't run all of them at the same time, but it's a roster, so you kind of pick and choose what you're going to do. But yeah, so those are all in progress right now. Well, I'm mainly just painting the clan rats right now, and then I'll do the other 4, which will be the Grey Seer, the Engineer, the Warp Fire thing, and then the big robot Storm Fiend. Those guys I'll get painting. Once I get these 11 rats done, then I'll paint those 4 guys too. So yeah, that's what's going on. And then after I get done with the second group of rats here, then I will be moving into Khorne Bloodbound, which is basically... It's basically the models that came in the original, not all of them, but all these models come from the box that was originally, not all of them, okay. The original Age of Sigmar box, where it was Stormcast versus Khorne dudes. Almost all the models that are in my new thing are from that, but there are 2 like special characters. There's a Exalted Deathbringer with Impaling Spear and also a Skull Grinder. So those 2 guys are added in extra, but yeah, it's cool. Sorry, I got to jump in. Condensers require phantom power. Dynamics don't. Usually condensers are more sensitive, but that's how the mic is designed. See, I've always heard the opposite way. Dynamic mics require phantom power, but I don't know. I know I've got phantom power on that big Procaster that I use. I mean, that's how that works. Same with my that's more of a condenser mic, I guess. Now that you can think of it, but the shotgun mic that I use for my regular videos too. But yeah, I don't know. I know the dynamic mics just record like near your face, whereas the condensers just have a tendency to pick up cats in the other room and furnace and all that kind of stuff. Ninjan just did a video on handheld airbrush compressor. It was quite enlightening. Yeah, I heard that. I haven't seen it yet. I'll check it out. Let's see here. If your hobby space isn't cramped, you need more stuff. That's the rule I've followed. I mean, I don't need more stuff, that's for sure. Ever tried the minigame Moonstone? No, I don't think I've heard of it either. Interesting. I'd love to see some of the videos from you about Marvel Crisis Protocol, by the way. Sarastro has some awesome free painting guides. Nice. Warcry for the win. Currently building my Dark Oath Savagers. Yeah, I can't wait till they release the Dark Oath Savagers as a separate box, because then I will pick them up. I don't have Red Harvest, and after looking at it for quite a while, I thought, well, I could buy it. My local shop's got it and everything, and I just was like, there's something about the terrain that's not to my particular aesthetic style. I don't know. Plus, I already have all the terrain like painted and done, and I'm that came in the original Warcry box, and I really love that terrain. It's really good. And plus, working with a viewer here, one of the Uncle Adam's Irregulars from Patreon. I bought. He had the original Warcry box and didn't want the terrain, and said, because I was talking about how I was looking to see if I could just find the terrain, and he was like, "Hey," reached out to me on Discord and was like, "Hey, if you want, I can send it to you, and I'll give you a price and whatever." And I was like, "Awesome!" So I paid him, and then he mailed it, and so there you go. So I'm going to be building that stuff too, and then maybe I don't know if I think I'm going to paint it differently. So I've got 2 different sets, but I'm going to use the same technique, but like different colors, I guess, is the plan. Finally made the jump into tabletop wargaming with Warcry, slowly getting my models together. Nice, Jim. Good to hear it. Impaling Spear has such a nice ring to it. Yeah, it's kind of, on the nose, isn't it? Oh, it's the Impaling Spear, as opposed to the... I guess you could use a spear for slashing. They're mostly used for impaling now. Seems kind of redundant. Yeah, I agree. Currently turning Storm Fiends into some 40k Hellbrute proxies. Yeah, I can see that. That's cool. I can see that, definitely. Is there a good open source rule set for skirmish size battles? I guess it depends on what you mean by open source. There are plenty of like skirmish sized battle games out there that are either free or inexpensive. And really any game is open source if you and your friends all just agree what you're going to do with it. I would say probably one of the most popular, like inexpensive to free, depending on which way you want to go, skirmish style games right now is probably from a company called One Page Rules. And One Page Rules makes a game called Grimdark Future, which is basically kind of their version of 40K. It's a sci-fi thing. And then they make another game called Age of Fantasy. But both of those are more army-based. But Grimdark Future Firefight is kind of like Kill Team in that it's small, groups of models, skirmishy. And I think that the fantasy version of that, I think, is just called Age of Fantasy Skirmish or something like that. But take a look at One Page Rules. You can download their rules for free if you want the like more slightly deluxe versions. I think they cost $5. Yeah, they've got a lot going on there. Currently working through the Stargrave metal figures. Nice. Okay, I don't know what changed here with this app, but yeah, that's interesting. I can't scroll with my. Oh, now I can. Okay. Lots of prep, flash, and supports will be worth it. Need sci-fi bases. Any suggestions? I always just make my own bases. The only sci-fi bases I know out there that are like kind of more like GW has some sci-fi bases stuff that's aimed towards like Necromunda, look kind of like deck plating and things like that. You could look at that, but otherwise I have a tendency to make my own bases. So. Impaling Spear sounds good. You wouldn't want a Bludgeoning Spear. I mean, if you use the wrong end, or if you break the end off, then it kind of becomes a Bludgeoning Spear. That's really just a staff at that point. Anyway, currently working... Oh, I just read that. Aloha from Hawaii. Aloha. It's a great pleasure to join you this morning. Happy New Year. Got my Rain to Hell copy on the way. Been trying to find others to build a league or just get events. Know anyone out there? In Hawaii? No, I don't know. Well, no, I don't think I know anybody in Hawaii. Well... ex-girlfriend of a friend of mine. I guess she lives there, but I don't think she's a gamer. So that's the only person I know that lives in Hawaii. But yeah, no, it's I'm glad to hear that you're interested in Rain in Hell. Absolutely. Try MCP. I think it's the best skirmish game design-wise that I encountered in my 20 years of playing skirmish games. Wow, nice. I like a lot of games, but I think the design and MCP reign supreme. Nice. Is the Crisis Protocol discussion over? Personally still painting the Guardians of the Galaxy myself. I mean, I don't know. Discussions, are they ever over? That's a good question. How do you take your coffee, Uncle Adam? A couple of, I like to throw a Splenda or two in there usually. That's pretty much about it. Can you use the corn guys from Shadespire in Warcry? I don't know if they have official... Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if they have official stats or not. I guess I haven't looked that close. Because they would be in the Chaos book if they did, but I don't remember if they are in there or not. Could be a Pokey Spear, true. Trying to understand how to thin my airbrush paints properly. I have Vallejo Flow Improver, but are some airbrush paints generally straight from the pot, or should I always use flame? If it says it's an airbrush paint, I always use it straight from the bottle. Yeah, if it says it's an airbrush paint, I don't thin it. Other people may, if they want to, but I've never, like with Vallejo airbrush paints, with the new airbrush paints from Army Painter, even Games Workshop airbrush paints. You got to figure out how to get them out of the pot because they're not in dropper bottles for some godforsaken reason. But yeah, no, you just, for me, I've never thinned them, but I don't know. I'm not particularly, I'm very much as far as airbrushing, like I'm going to prime this model. I'm going to put some base colors on it, you know, like, and I don't even mean like make the shoulder pads one color while the armor is another color, because how am I going to do that with an airbrush? I'm sure there are ways, but I'm just like, no. Like this guy is supposed to be mostly red, so I'm going to airbrush him red. Or this guy is supposed to be mostly, you know, whatever color. I'm going to, you know, start out with a dark color, or do the black and white Zenithal thing, or maybe a silver and black Zenithal thing. I mean, it depends on what you're doing, what you're trying to get with. Like if I'm trying to paint Iron Man, I will bet I would probably prime in black and then Zenithal highlight with silver, and then go over with contrast paints or something quick like that. That's how I would do it. Like the whole like I've seen people do like non-metallic metal Iron Man, and I'm just like, it seems like a lot of work, and I don't personally. It's again not my aesthetic. It just doesn't come to. I don't know. I just look at it and go. But anyway, my point is that what is my point? Oh yeah, thinning your paints. I basically almost never use regular paints in my airbrush. I only pretty much ever use airbrush paints. So that's, yeah, I don't have a great answer on that. I know plenty of people, like I know Sam very frequently airbrushes with the P3 paints from Privateer Press, but he thins it. I don't know if he uses Flow Improver or just water. There's a lot of different, I would play with it a little bit and see what you think. There are people out there that are like, oh, you can't use that. No, it's terrible. Other people are like, absolutely. That's the only thing I ever use. There's a lot of opinions out there, certainly. I bypass most of it just by using airbrush paints. It works best for me. Have you tried the Warcry campaign for Dominion box units? I have not. I've only painted 3 of the Dominion models. I painted 3 Cruel Boys. I've started building some Hobgrots, but I'm converting them for a different game. So I'm giving them like blasters and bolt pistols and stuff like that. I'm going to use them in Space Weirdos. But I haven't gotten too far on them lately, as I've been working on their stuff and everything. But yeah, they're it'll be interesting to see what because I know that they do make now. They have Warcry rules or Warcry stats for the Dominion ones. They also have Warcry stats for not everything from Cursed City, but a bunch of the models from Cursed City. So I want to build a force of those guys too. I think that'd be a hoot. Making my geez, it scrolled. Where did it go? So many of the Warcry bands work great for Rain and Hell, says Darnock. Maybe give a more demonic paint job. Still, both games have so much crossover in models and terrain. I can see that, sure. I played One Page Rules Fantasy Skirmish yesterday. We had a lot of fun. Nice. Big fan of One Page Rules. Their Patreon is a great deal. Yeah, I do the $5 a month, I think, Patreon. I do the one where you don't get the models because I don't have my printer set up yet. So still have sealed Octarius. I was going to sell it as I have Warcry. Briefly, what was it about Kill Team that you didn't like? Honestly, Octarius is fine. Like, if you just bought Octarius, you built the models in there, the orc dudes and the gas mask dudes, the Krieg, and just played with them, good. Because honestly, the rules for the rules for Kill Team are based off of the Warcry rules. They've added extra stuff on, but it's from the base. It's still like, it's not like 40K anymore. It's more like Warcry, where you're basically like, okay, here's the range of your thing, and then here's how many dice you throw, and then here's the strength, and here's the toughness, and blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff, and what you need to hit, and all that jazz. Well, no, what you need to hit is based off of your strength versus your toughness, because it's not even like a 2-hit. The thing is that with Kill Team they've added on. With Kill Team, they've added on a different way to do the hand-to-hand combat. They use the same, like in Warcry, all combat's the same, whether it's range combat or hand-to-hand combat. In Kill Team, range combat's done like it is in Warcry. Hand-to-hand combat's done with like an opposed roll, totally different kind of system. So there's that. Plus, they're adding in things like armor saves and stuff like that, and activations and this. And so they've just tacked more stuff onto the Warcry rules as a base. That all being said, again, the two forces that come in Octarius, if you build lists with them, they're actually interesting. You've got spotters and snipers and demolition experts and all kinds of things that all have different special rules and stuff like that. I think that makes it more interesting. My big issue with Kill Team is not so much Kill Team itself, it's the compendium book that they charged you $50 for, that just has very, 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 very basic rule, army lists in it. You're like, oh, you want to play Space Marines? You get 5 guys, 5 Primaris guys. Well, which one's the spotter? None of them. There's no spotters. There's no medic. There's no nothing. One guy's the leader or sergeant or whatever, and the other 4 guys are all the same dude. And that's it. You know what I mean? If you want to play other armies, well, then generally you get 2 fire teams, but Space Marines only get 1. And it's just, I don't know. So it's the compendium really that, and then, like I've said, it's also then, well, now they're starting to put interesting rules into Chalnath for the Tau and for the Sisters of Battle. And then they're starting to put interesting rules into, for the AdMech into White Dwarf. And they're and that kind of thing. And it's just becoming like we sold you this $50 book that's kind of boring. But what if you bought this $12 magazine? Then you've got now a better list for this one army. And we'll put it, and we'll keep doing that. And the previous version of the game, the 2018 version of Kill Team, if you bought the core book, you got the rules and all the army lists at the time. There were admittedly not army lists yet for Sisters of Battle, because I don't think they've been released yet. There was, for some reason, no army list for demons. I don't know why. And a couple other ones here and there, Kroot and stuff like that. So they added in some later on. But every other army had its list in that original $40 book. So you could buy that $40 book and be done. Be like, cool, ready to go. I can start playing. I need a 22 by 30 board, and I need some terrain, I need some models, I need some dice, maybe some tokens I can make up. And that's just not going to work for their business model. They got to figure out ways to make it cost $300 to play the game instead of $40. So that's just the way it works. So honestly, Octarius and the Kill Team rules base is fine. It's just, I don't like the way that they've decided that they're going to spread this out over the next X amount of time and all that stuff and all the things. And if that compendium had been a bundle of PDFs that you downloaded for free, I would not have nearly the problem I have with Kill Team, to be perfectly frank with you. It's just that, like, if they had been like, hey, as a stopgap until the interesting stuff comes out, here's some very simple, stuff. Here's the PDFs for free. I would have been like, okay, well, it's free. But yeah, it's a real bummer. I'm interested in getting MCP, but the need to paint them to look similar to the source material is intimidating. There's no need to do that. You can paint them however you want. Just remember that. You can paint them however you want. You might get somebody at the shop who might be like, well, actually, this is how, and you'd be like, no, that's not, this is a alternate, it's a multiverse. This one is Iron Man from Earth 27/B/4 or whatever. I don't know. You can do what you want. Absolutely. I have felt compelled to build a squad of these Gundam artifact kits. I've built 3, based them on discs of 1mm sheet styrene, cut and sanded to shape. I detail with chunks of sprue and bits box. Nice. Will there be Rain in Hell battle reports? We filmed 2. On one of them, the audio is not great, so I don't know if that one will ever see the light of day, but maybe it will. The first one, though, the audio is better, and eventually I will edit it and post it. So in theory, yes. I'm not sure when, but in theory, yes. Yes. Let's see here. Is there anywhere to find printed copies of Space Weirdos or Rain in Hell? Well, Space Weirdos, no, that's PDF only. So what I just did is printed the PDF. It is formatted to be printed. Do I have a copy around here? Amazingly, I don't think I do. Oh, wait, no, I do. Haha. So it is only 16 pages, and it is formatted to fit in a normal. So this is an 8.5 by 11 folded in half. So you can tell your Adobe Reader to print it in booklet format, and then it will take, page 1 and page 16 and print them on this side, and then double side it and print page 2 and page 15, blah, blah. And then you just staple it together right there along the edge, and then boom, you got yourself your own book of Space Weirdos. But you could also just look at it on your iPad or your laptop or whatever. So there's not a print version for sale. Rain in Hell there is. Rain in Hell, if you go to raininhellgame.com, you can click on the link, and either you can pick up the PDF only, or you can buy the printed version and the PDF. And it's the printed version with the PDF is like $15 plus shipping. And then they will be digitally printing it and then mailing it off to you. And so, yeah, that's how you get a printed copy of that. Let's see here. I'm giving up producing 40K and Age of Sigmar content. I'm going to MCP exclusive. Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I think that it's growing. I've heard rumblings from people that because Atomic Mass Games now not only is because the Marvel game is their baby. I mean, obviously they're underneath the Asmodee thing, which now Asmodee got bought by somebody else. But anyway, so that was their baby, and then Asmodee was like, "Hey, cool. Why don't you also take Star Wars X-Wing, Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Armada, and all that other stuff?" And then they were like, "Okay." And the rumblings I've heard are from people who like to play Star Wars Legion and Star Wars X-Wing. The rumbling I've been hearing from the Armada folks is a totally different rumbling. But the rumbling from those Legion and X-Wing people is that they feel like Atomic Mass doesn't understand their game and is making changes to it that don't make sense, and maybe isn't making enough changes or isn't producing enough stuff, or I don't know, whatever. There's a lot of complaints, as you get in Wargaming in general. But the people who like Marvel, the Marvel Crisis Protocol game, they have a tendency to dig. They like, I guess, what Atomic Mass is doing. I keep wanting to call them Amazon for some reason. I don't know why, but Atomic Mass is doing. That, I guess you got that going for you. If you're a Legion player, many Legion players, specifically the more competitive ones, are seemingly not real happy with Atomic Mass, but the Marvel people seem to like them just fine. So I guess there's that. Will you ever play historical war games? I used to play, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 years ago. I used to play Flames of War. And I was like FOW, but I forget what it stands for. But yeah, I used to play Flames of War a little bit because I had some friends that were playing it, and I got into it and started building a U.S. force, and we played some games, and we would spend most of our time building little villages and stuff like that and getting that all set up. And honestly, that was like we would spend an hour and a half setting up a cool little village, and then we would spend another hour and a half trying to play the game, but we would just be head down on the rules all the time because we didn't play enough to remember the rules. And frankly, this is even back in second edition. Flames of War, the rules were confusing to us and weird, and it didn't ever get better. So yeah, I haven't played it since. And as far as other historical games, I really honestly don't know a ton of people around here who play historical stuff. I think there's actually a convention going on a couple towns over this weekend, which is, I think it's called TundraCon. I think that's what it's called, TundraCon. I think it's going on this weekend, and it's mostly historical. Bolt action, and maybe even getting into the other stuff, like Ancients and things like that, and whatever. Saga, maybe. I don't know. I know a guy way north of me who's big into Saga. He's got a YouTube channel, and I can't think of the name of it. His name is Joe Rogers. I think it's Raj. He mostly focuses on Saga in this channel, and it's Raj something. I can't remember the name of his channel, and I feel bad because it used to be called Wisco something because we're in Wisconsin. Anyway, long story short is that no, I haven't really played any historical stuff in a while. I'm not super interested in playing World War II stuff these days, really. I guess that's part of it. I've been using my sprue goo to fix everything to bases. Works fantastic, blends nicely. Nice. I bought the Baron Zemo from MCP on eBay just to see how I liked the models, and it's really, really good. I can see myself going in all that. Oh, that's cool. Star Breach, you also get a free PDF, and it seems to be a good mechanic. Yeah, Star Breach, there's a free version you can download, and then there's also a premium version you can get that's basically got artwork and some other things in it and stuff like that, but it's the same rules. And then you can also buy a printed version of Star Breach as well, soft cover, I think. I've got a hardcover because they had the hardcovers in the Kickstarter, I believe, originally. Does Silver Bayonet fall into your historical rule where you dip in? Well, Silver Bayonet is alternate history historical. I'm interested in alternate history stuff. I like Conflict 47, you know what I mean? Because it didn't happen. I think that's part of my issue. Silver Bayonet turns out it didn't happen, as far as we know. Yeah, there was, during the time of the Napoleonics, there were no vampires and werewolves and all that kind of, creatures of the night and such, from what we understand. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to. I have the book, and I don't know. I think part of the issue for me is coming up with models, and I think these days I'm a little bit more interested, even though I have a bunch of Napoleonic models from the Perry Miniatures Company. But I originally bought those because, and I'm still planning on converting them for Turnip 28, which to me, Turnip 28 is more interesting than most other historical games that I've looked at, especially since it's, again, not historical. Because it technically takes place in the future, really. So, yeah. I only like war comics, so MCP ain't my bag, baby. Sure. 90% thinner, a 10% flow improver, and add a few drops to your airbrush before adding airbrush paint or primer. My lizard brain likes shiny, so I like true metallic. Yeah, I like true metallics generally too. For multiple reasons. Number one is I prefer the look, and number two, it's faster and easier to paint. So there's that too. That rumbling that I'm hearing, I think, is my stomach. Yeah, I had that on Friday. I had a checkup, 6-month doctor's appointment thing, and I'm sitting there at the doctor's office, and the nurse is checking my blood pressure and all that jazz and whatnot. And one of our tummies was grumbling, and I was like, "Is that your tummy or mine?" She's like, "I think it's mine." I'm like, "Yeah, maybe." And then mine was doing it later. I enjoy playing Kill Team, but it's hard to get a community started at my local store between GW not sending stock, the compendium, and the high cost to simply have a special non-compendium team. Oh, well. Yeah. Well, I mean, Games Workshop's not the only one. Every company's been having issues. Well, every company that's sending out material stuff, like actual tangible stuff, as opposed to PDFs and whatnot. But they've all been having problems with shipping and all that stuff for the last 6 months at least, I bet. Let's see here. My FLGS has the Warlord Black, I think Black Powder. I don't know what back power is. Oh, maybe it's back power. I don't know. Waterloo starter set at a really good discount. Lord help me, I can't feel the pull of a historical rank and flank. See, that's the thing too, is I don't like rank and flank games. Local store just started pushing Conflict 47 with the bolt action folks, but I haven't got into it either. I mean, they're very similar games. They use a lot of the same rules, from what I understand. A lot of the models are because sure, you got guys in power armor and you got walking weird robot tank kind of things, but you still need dudes with Tommy guns, and so yeah. I don't know. It's a good question. The historical games that come out of two fat lardies are amazing through and through for those that like that sort of thing. Sure. I got bored with 40K, so I'm getting the local scene to play SPQR, Bolt Action 47, and Battletech. Oh, that's cool. I'm worried about the depth perception of all the one-eyed cruel boys in my army. I'm a fan of only having to paint one eye on those models. Well, yeah, I can understand. I mean, you know, if you've got spears, you can just be like, I'm going to point it in that direction until it stops. And then hopefully it'll be okay. North Star Miniatures make sets of minis dedicated to Silver Bayonet. They look quite good. I think I've seen some. They didn't make plastics, I don't think. They just made some metal miniatures, I think. Stargrave, they made plastics. Frostgrave, they made plastics. Frostgrave and Stargrave plastics are great. I really like them. The Stargrave ones are a little smooth, so I always want to paint them a little grungy, because otherwise they come across too clean, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have, like, there's no texture detail in their arms and legs, and like not their actual arms and legs. Their clothes, you know what I mean? Like, their clothes are all perfect. And I'm like, because of the way Stargrave is, it's a game that's supposed to take place basically after a giant galactic war in which everybody lost, and now there's literally like almost no government, and yet the photographs that they have in the book in Stargrave of the North Star miniatures are painted so like almost like Star Trek The Next Generation clean. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's so smooth and clean. The blends are gorgeous in those models. They do really good work and all that stuff. And I'm like, I kind of want some wash in there. I want some kind of grunge and a little bit of stippling of some dirt on the pants legs and stuff like that, or whatever. But everyone's very clean. So I've been painting mine to be a bit grungier because that's what I do. So black powder is correct, but autocorrect betrayed me, and it'll do that to you. I kind of thought so, because back power, I don't even know what that is. I mean, I guess I could use a massage, but that's not the same thing. Let's see here. I like the look of MCP and the Star Wars games, but I'm concerned that buying into them will ultimately end with Disney muscling its way into the hobby. That is a grimdark future that I would like to avoid. I don't know if Disney cares a ton about the hobby. I mean, first of all, one would say that they already are muscled into the hobby and that there's a Star Wars game and a Marvel game. But yeah, I don't know that Games Workshop has a ton to worry about as far as that's concerned. I mean, those games are doing pretty well, both of them, and that's cool, but I don't think that GW is going to go out of business, because I think there's plenty of people who are attached enough to the lore that it keeps them playing the game, even if they may not necessarily enjoy the game so much, but they enjoy Space Marines and Dark Elves or Dark Eldar, or whatever the hell they're called these days, the Drew Carries or whatever, and all that jazz. So I think that's the case. Any thoughts on Don't Look Back by Blacksite Studios, or any similar cooperative all versus AI miniatures and games? I have not gotten a chance to play Don't Look Back. I watched a bat rep on their Twitch 6 months ago, maybe. It's a cool concept. For those of you that don't know, Don't Look Back from Blacksite Studios is a game that it's like a horror movie. So you have I think it's cooperative, and you've got people who are controlling the camp counselors who are trying to get away. And then there's a Jason character, which I don't remember if the Jason character is controlled by a GM or if it's controlled by kind of an AI sort of situation. I forget exactly. I think it's an AI. But yeah, they've got characters who are, well, and here's the thing too, is that this character is not Jason, because they don't have the license to use Jason, but it's Jason-esque, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of that going on. So it's a cool concept. I don't know that it's a game I would be interested in building and playing necessarily, but I would definitely sit down at the shop and play it with someone or at a convention. But I don't know that I would go through the issue is that I can play a lot of sci-fi games and use the same terrain in most of them. I can even, I could use Games Workshop terrain in Planet 28 or in Space Weirdos and just be this is a weird Gothic church thing going on or whatever over here, but it's in ruins now. And then put it next to some more Star Wars type, Tatooine buildings and stuff like that. You can mix and match that stuff together. For a game like that, you kind of need to build an entire board that works with it. You know what I mean? You need like city streets, which is also part of the issue with Marvel Crisis Protocol, is I can't just use the terrain that I already have. Like I've got fantasy style terrain and I've got sci-fi style terrain. Marvel stuff doesn't fit into either of those. Plus the scale is weird too, because Marvel Crisis Protocol is 40 millimeters, so everything is bigger by a good deal, which is fine. And I do know that it matches to a very specific model train scale, maybe O, I forget exactly. And Lord knows they're starting to make their own cool terrain too. They've got like the Doctor Strange's house. They've got some brick building that I've seen too. Both of them, I'm like, if those were the right scale, I would buy them and use them for other games. But I don't know. Anyway, so that's the issue. That's the only issue I see with Blackside Studios game. Don't Look Back. I like the concept, but it's because it's very, very specific. Like I watched in one of their bat reps, I swear that I think that the whole thing was happening in a subway. So they had really great terrain, because that's really what Blackside Studios, that's where they kind of started, was with terrain. But then you have to kind of completely kind of shift into that sort of situation, which if you're into it, that's great. But for me, I'm kind of like, I like the terrain, but I like my terrain to be very fluid, that I can use it in a lot of different games. And so that's why I've got just sci-fi stuff and fantasy stuff. And so, but as far as like, yeah, co-op and solo stuff, like that's the next game that Vince and I are working on, is a sci-fi solo co-op. You can also play it adversarially against your friends or whatever. But the base, where we're starting from, is the concept of solo and co-op. So yeah, I am a big fan of that kind of stuff. Does anyone know what happened to Wild West Exodus? Still in production from War Cradle over in England. Yeah, War Cradle has got it, and it's been doing. I think it's been doing pretty well. They've released some other games too. They've got a game called Mythos, which has got kind of a Lovecraftian sort of skirmishy thing. Which one of these days I'm going to paint up. I've got some stuff from them. I want to paint it up, because I like Lovecraft stuff. So would you say he's Jason adjacent? Yes. I would definitely say that. It's hard to say, but I would definitely do it. They also have a moon battle game advertising on Facebook, USA versus USSR, old style astronauts outfits. Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, I don't know. Like, I remember watching, was it Ad Astra? I think it might have been Ad Astra with Brad Pitt. And there was like a point where there was like, or it was some other movie I saw, sci-fi, that was just basically like people on the moon having a battle. And you're just basically driving around in moon buggies, shooting each other with pistols. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's cool that they're doing different stuff. I think that's very cool for the people who are interested in that kind of thing. Don't Look Back looks like it should be a co-op board game, self-contained thing, but it's neat looking. Grill Miniature Games did lots of bad reps. Yeah. Been looking for models, non-Games Workshop for Rain and Hell. Etsy is dangerous. That's true. It's true. Don't have a printer, so this can be a barrier. The thing about Etsy is that you don't need a printer then. You just go to somebody on Etsy is going to print it for you. So that's a benefit. And I've done an entire cabal of stuff I bought, 3D printed stuff I bought off of Etsy. And then the thing to look for like demons and stuff like that for that type of game, honestly, I've said this a bunch of times, pretty much any Dungeons and Dragons monster can be a demon. And demons don't have to be red, you know what I mean, like that. But any monster, pretty much from Dungeons and Dragons or any kind of fantasy monster, for the most part, you can be like, that's a demon. Sure. The weirder ones are easier to make in a demon, or to just go, that's a demon. If it's like specifically just like a skeleton, you'd be like, well, I mean, you can still say it's a demon, but it's just kind of weird. But if it's like some sort of weird wormy monster creature with wings or something like that, then that makes total sense. So I like the idea of Don't Look Back, but I'm not sure I want to commit to doing the minis and terrain. Yeah, I can see that. So I got Final Girl, which is a small board game that has the same sort of premise. Oh, I see where the term comes from, Final Girl. I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. Can't stay, just want to stop in and say you are awesome. Keep up the wonderful work, Uncle. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Justin. Thank you very much. Wild West Exodus is still going. Just released a load of stuff. Yeah, like I said, War Cradle is the name of the company. Let's see here. What else? I try to build terrain to be used for multiple games, and in some cases, multiple scales. Scales is difficult, but definitely for multiple games, yeah. Like, I mean, I can use even like, I could use like there are ruined buildings that are for bolt action, like European style houses that are, your bolt action and Conflict 47, but because they're like old timey like European buildings and they're ruins, I could also use them for any kind of fantasy game. You know what I mean? Like they just look like an old ruined house, and so you could do that. So yeah, I've done a bunch of that kind of stuff. I've got like, you've got models that you could use in a more like, I don't want to say historical fantasy, not historical fantasy, like, medieval stuff. Plus you could also be like, well, there's also wizards and skeletons and crap, but it's just still basically a Tudor style house ruin or whatever, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's definitely, but you can also use those Tudor style house ruins in in bolt action if you wanted to, or more likely for me, again, like I said, Conflict 47, but it's just, European theater. And there you go. That was a really old house and now it's all broken. So, there you go. I really want to play a post-apocalyptic game because they have the coolest terrain, but none of the actual games catch me, and I don't want to spend a lot on terrain I don't need. Huh. Well, I really used to like Wreckage. That was a good post-apocalyptic game. This Is Not a Test is pretty good, though it does skew more towards, like, it was kind of, I don't want to say it was a knockoff of Fallout, but it was definitely Fallout inspired. But you could certainly just decide not to be inspired by Fallout and instead just make it regular, like more Mad Maxy kind of post-apocalyptic or whatever, that kind of thing. I could see that. This Is Not a Test looked neat too, but then I got to convince folks to play it. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I mean, that's the thing about being a gaming advocate, is that if you decide I'm going to start teaching people how to play this, like the thing is, if you decide I'm never going to teach people how to play this, I'm only going to play what people play, you're going to end up playing a lot of 40K. So if you don't like that, then unfortunately you kind of have to take the reins a little bit and be like, all right, I'm going to show you how to play this game and I've got everything all ready to go and that kind of stuff. And that's, that's the downside to some degree of the, of tabletop wargaming in comparison to something like video gaming. With video gaming, you buy the video game, you install the video game, and then you start playing against people, and they're matchmaking you and setting you up. And tabletop gaming is obviously a different thing. On the other hand, you also, I think you get more. I get more enjoyment out of tabletop gaming because I get to sit and paint it and build it and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I just like the physicality of it as well. Uncle Adam, did you see that Wylock's Armory is developing a cyberpunk game called Neon Skies? I don't think I've ever heard of Wylock's Armory. Is that a YouTube channel, or is it a producer of miniatures or something like that? I don't think I've come across Wylock's Armory before. But I think cyberpunk games are cool in concept, absolutely. If you are clever, you can build your hills and woods to be scale agnostic within a range, of course. Yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah, that's true. Hill's a hill, it can be whatever scale. Trees, yeah. I mean, like if you buy like the really big Christmas pines that are like nearly a foot tall for your Christmas village, and then you try to use them as pine trees in a 15mm style, like Flames of War game, they're going to look too big because I've never seen a pine tree quite that large before. But it's easily 28mm, 32mm, 40mm. Those big tall pines are fine. Now, the little pines that you get from like Woodland Scenics and stuff like that, these are great if they're this big for, again, like Flames of War or something like that. But if the Hulk is this big next to the pine tree, you could still even honestly at that point be like, it's a new pine tree. It just got planted like, I don't know, 2 years ago. So it's a small pine tree. You could do that. But yeah, that's basically the case. Zona Alpha is fun and relatively post-apocalyptic. True, yeah. It's not technically post-apocalyptic, but it's got a bit of a vibe that way. Where the game is being played is generally, you could easily use post-apocalyptic stuff there, yeah. The whole concept behind Zona Alpha, for those of you that don't know, is it is based off the concept that aliens came to Earth, landed, did alien stuff, whatever, and then left. and then he left behind a bunch of alien garbage. And so the governments of the countries that the aliens landed in built these exclusion zones around the landing sites because people were going in there to try to pick up all the cool alien garbage, and some of it was really neat and some of it killed them. And so they're like, yeah, we can't do that. So they are trying to protect it with this exclusion zone, and then these people known as stalkers sneak in, mostly at night, and go in to try to find treasure and not get killed. And that's the whole concept of Zone Alpha. So the rest of the world is fine, mostly. It's just these exclusion zones that are, because a lot of times they're close to military bases or something like that, or industrial areas. So for terrain, you're using a lot of industrial, warehousey stuff, military base stuff, but it's all in disrepair because everyone's had to evacuate. So, it can be very Chernobyl-y, if you know what I mean. And so that's very cool. The minis for that Fallout Wasteland Warfare look pretty cool, but they didn't hang around long here. I mean, they're still producing stuff for it. That's Modifius, right? I'm pretty sure that 98% sure that's Modifius. Norfolk pines are pretty huge. Yeah, I mean, there are big pine trees, certainly, but I don't know if they're if it's a foot tall pine tree and you're driving a tank that's only about an inch and a half tall next to it, because it's a 50 millimeter, Flames of War tank. I think that would look, I don't know, maybe. I mean, again, you can do what you want. It's your game. But yeah. Mutants and Death Ray Guns is a fun little post-apocalyptic game by Ganesha Games. True. Mutants and Death Ray Guns is by the same guy that did Song of Blades and Heroes and stuff like that. And so it uses a lot of the same kind of mechanics and things like that in the game, which is cool. Get a selection of trees. They mix well. It's true. I own a bunch of different weird trees, and they're fun. Model railway trees are too small, actually. You could use the next 2 size codes up for HO trees for N. Yeah, you could do that too. Again, model railroad trees are fine for 15 millimeter, but for 28, they're maybe a touch small. Did you hear that Gaddis Gaming is following up their World War II game with a new Cold War era game called Crystallum? I did not. That's very interesting. Thank you very much, Gaddis Gaming. I hadn't heard about that actually yet. I assumed you guys were doing something new. That's good to hear. Mordecai says, I'm not concerned about the future of GW. My concern is that the only real competition to GW is Disney. I can't see that being good for hobby overall. Thanks for highlighting indies. I mean, that's the thing, is that the big guys are always going to be up at the top slugging against each other and stuff like that. And if you're only interested in playing what's popular, and if you're only interested in playing what's got the highest production values and stuff like that, well, then yeah, that's going to be a concern about who comes out on top and what's going to happen and all that kind of stuff with those big, titans, slapping away at each other. But like me, in a lot of situations, I mean, sure, I still like to play Warcry, and I still like to play, I'm thinking about MCP, which is also, technically Disney, Star Wars, technically Disney. I mean, I know Disney's not the game company. I know that it's, Asmodee that's doing it, but still, it's coming from those licenses. But I still like also a lot of weird indie stuff because it gives me the ability to kind of build the story the way I want to, as opposed to being like somebody mentioned earlier, they're like, I don't know if I want to paint, Marvel models because everyone knows what they're supposed to look like. And if I don't paint it that way, then I'm going to get, whatever. And I personally am a fan of I'll paint my models the way I want to. Thank you very much. And B, if it's not based off of any big normal story, like Star Wars, Marvel movies, 40K and Age of Sigmar lore, then I can do whatever I want. And I get to craft the story more, which I also enjoy. Admittedly, you can craft the story that you want in GW, Disney, whatever. You can say, well, these particular Space Marines are actually a weird offshoot, and they did this and that and the other thing or whatever. And people will tell you, well, that's not in the books. And you can be like, well, I don't think you've read all of them, have you? And then they'll be like, well, maybe I haven't, And so I don't know. I'm a big fan of just doing what you like in the hobby. And that's one of the reasons why I like the hobby. Will there be a speed paints video anytime soon? Yes. Hopefully this month. My plan is to get it out because the speed paints are coming out from the Army Painter in February. So one of the last pieces that I was looking to get as far as things I need to pick up.
You have blockaded me.
I know this. There we go. There, he's back. Ta-da. Back from patrol. Basically I didn't want to do a review, for lack of a better term, or whatever, of the Army Painter speed paints on my desk, which has a giant Army Painter hobby mat on it that has their logo on it repeated over and over and over and over again. So I was like, I need something to cover that. So while I'm doing this video, that, you know, and also in the future doing more videos from my Twitch, like filming videos from my Twitch setup with the camera pointing down onto my hobby table and stuff like that. It would just be nice to not be like talking about a product here, but also having, you know, the Army Painters logo repeated over and over and over on that mat. I really like that mat. It's great, but it's got their logo all over it. So, you know, I get that. So anyway, I went onto Amazon and bought big pieces, a pack of like 100, 12 by 18 pieces of like black construction paper. So I can sort of just stick it down with a couple of pieces of masking tape. And now I've got a nice backdrop. I can do stuff. I can maybe even get goop on it or whatever, spill paint on it, and then just take it off and then throw another one down. So I'm not going to do that for Twitch. Like, I'm not going to sit there and do that so that I'm always got that on there. But for videos that I do for YouTube, I wanted to do that. So that just actually literally, that construction paper showed up yesterday. So hopefully in the next week or so, I'm going to probably, I mean, I've already got the models. I need to prime one more model because I need to do a zenithal prime, and then so I can show what it looks like with a zenithal. All the models I have primed for comparison are all just straight white. But yeah. So long story short, it's on its way. So yeah. This paint scheme was in White Dwarf in 1998. There you go. Or 1988. Ooh, there you go. Nick has returned, indeed. Any ideas what color to dry brush on black for a bit of an edge? I generally go with a dark to nearly mid-gray. If you go with a mid-gray, you want to back off a little bit on the dry brushing. If you want to do a little bit more dry brushing, then I would try to go with maybe a little bit of a darker gray over black. When I did my Death Watch, I was going to say Death Guard, but those are totally different guys. When I did my Death Watch guys for Kill Team, yeah, I just primed them black, and then I took a big fat makeup brush and a color called... I either used black gray from Vallejo or basalt gray from Vallejo. And I think it was the black gray, which is a very dark gray. And then I just, makeup brush and then brush it off on a piece of paper, paper towel, and then dry brush the heck out of it. And you catch edges on sharp parts, and you also, in the flat areas, you do add a little bit of, and it made them look, I don't want to say dusty, but I kind of like that kind of rougher sort of thing. So yeah, I did that. That's how I've generally done it. Marvel has decades of costumes to choose from. None of my Crisis figures are painted in the standard colors. Do what you like. I agree. I never use the standard paint schemes. I always paint the guy's alt colors or something totally different. Turn the Red Skull into the mask by painting him yellow and printing out a hat. Nice. That's funny. Good morning from California. How you doing? (1988) I was 21. Young, fresh-faced kid with my life ahead of me. Well, sure. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that I would say that hurdles about me getting into MCP partially it would be, and I'll be perfectly honest with this, is that I've already got plenty of games that I'm interested in. That being said, I wouldn't mind at least painting some of these guys, like building them and then going from there and then priming and painting and going from there and then seeing what we get. It could be one of those projects where I never necessarily actually get a game in, but I would like to. So I don't know. I've got plenty of stuff to paint, honestly, for Warcry, because after I get done with these Skaven, then I've got Khorne Bloodbound, and then after the Khorne Bloodbound, I might go into Ironjaws. But the issue with the Ironjaws, this is the thing I'm finding more and more with Warcry. And I think hopefully soon Sam's been ill a little bit. He had like a cold and stuff like that. Or something. But he's better now from what it seems like. He was streaming on Friday, so that's he's getting better. Anyway, soon I want to get together and film with him too. So I think it'd be fun for him and I to sit down and like talk about Warcry strategy. Even though, well, I'm not a particularly good strategist. He's a better strategist than I am. But yeah, I think it'd be fun, just like for beginners, like things to think about when building your army lists and stuff like that. weird chin thing going on. Anyway, one of the things that I have learned is that fast and multiple is better than not. So what I mean by that is if your models are all slow, they all move 3 or 4, it's not great. 5 or 6 is better, obviously. I mean, it's faster, but it's also just there's a lot of times when being able to move quicker is a big benefit. And then the other trick is that like my Stormcast, they're beat sticks, they're monstrous, but they don't move very quick, and there's only 5 of them. So it's very difficult for them to hold objectives, especially if there's 3 objectives or 4 in some situations. When you've only got 5 guys, it's real hard to hold 4 objectives or, whatever. But when you've got, like my Skaven, I still really like my Skaven Plague Monks. I mean, there's 13 guys in that list, and they all move 6. They haul. Now, they only do 1 damage. Unless they crit, then they do 5. They're really, pretty decent that way. So I like them a lot. But yeah, so that kind of stuff is a situation. And with the orcs, I don't know if that's necessarily... Like, I really want to build a group of brutes, but I don't know that 5 or 6 guys is going to do the job, I don't know if you can really depend on them in most situations. They will, if they catch you, they will, it will be horrific. You will die. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to go with more folks than less generally, if you can. But so I don't know exactly what my next Warcry is after, my next Warcry warband is after the corn guys. So that's part of the question. On the Marvel comic front, my wargaming hobby has given me confidence in building the old Horizon vinyl model kits based on the comics from the 90s. If I can paint tiny dudes, I can paint big ones. You can dodge a ball. No, you can dodge a wrench. You can dodge a ball. I don't know, it's something like that. But yeah, that sounds about right. I like the worn and weathered look. What's a good way to achieve scratches and bullet holes in armor? Like in the actual physical plastic of the model, I would use little drills and use your pointy X-Acto blade and kind of stuff like that. If you're going to do it predominantly all in paint, then it is all about basically like maybe making like let's say it's metal armor. Let's say it's blue metal armor. I don't know. So you would make like a little tiny little dot of silver, right? And if you want it to be actually like a hole, like a bullet hole, you do a little tiny dot of silver, and then let's say the dot's this big. Not physically this big, but we're zoomed way in, right? We've done this with our zooming in. So this is our dot of silver. Then you want to do a dot of black that is maybe like it's smaller than this, but offset up a little bit. The reason for this is because then if you've got this black dot that is like, I don't have any good way to show this to you. If you've got a black dot that is smaller than the silver dot and most of the silver is on the underside sticking out from underneath the black dot, what you are doing is you are making it look like there's a hole, and the light as it's coming down is hitting, if this was a hole, the light's coming down and hitting the bottom part, because up here is a shadow. Like if the light was coming from above, the shadow is in the top part of the hole, and the highlight that's getting hit with the light from above is on the bottom part of it. So making a silver dot and then making a smaller black dot that is in the upper part of it will make it look, to the eye, when you're doing it in a very small detail, it will look like holes. Like Sam has used that type of technique for quite some time. And there are times when I look at some of the stuff he paints, and it literally, I can't tell until I get real close and start to turn it, whether there's actually a hole there or whether that's just paint. And so you can kind of do that. There's definitely plenty of different tutorials and things like that on YouTube where you can find out about that too. So new to the hobby, only spend time on Warhammer, but I want to expand my horizons to new models. Any suggestions on follow-up games? I only assemble and paint, if that helps. Suggestions for follow-up games. I mean, if you're mainly just looking for Warhammer stuff, Warhammer Underworlds is probably good because it's small. It's kind of a gateway game between board games and miniature games. You're playing on a small board. There's like hexes and stuff like that, and there's not a ton of miniatures per warband, so that wouldn't be a bad idea. Ever tried singing? I bet you'd have a lovely voice. Well, thank you. I mean, I was in chorus in like middle school. I didn't in high school. I was in a band in my early 30s into even my 40s on and off. We we did a lot of starting and stopping, but it was a punk band, so it wasn't. My voice was not lovely in that band. Let's say that. I think the guys who produce Flames of War have a Vietnam rule set. Yes, they do, and a line of minis. That's true. That's true. What I love about Warcry is that it all depends on the scenario. Your beat sticks might do well in one, but not another. To some degree, that's true. Yeah, there are every once in a while you're like, okay, you got to do this one thing, and you're like, well, no. But yeah, it depends. Triple Wah ability is awesome. Yeah, that's true. I'm thinking it's time to give a few FLGSs a shot at forgiveness. Time to get back into a game group. Nice. Looking at building a Skaven Warcry warband, but looking at the Scry acolytes for some ranged, but $10 per model is painful. Yeah, they're not new, if I remember correctly, either, are they? Well, I mean, not that any of the Skaven really are new too much. Like the Clan Rats are from like 2009, but still, they're not bad. They are very, because the Clan Rats, the standard Clan Rats, were designed for Warhammer Fantasy. They're very, like, everything's very close, because you had to put them in like rank and flank with a whole bunch of other ones, and if they kind of spread out a little bit and they're poking their friends in the face and stuff like that because they're all so close to each other, it's the same thing that happened with the Chaos Warriors. The old Chaos Warriors are definitely, I have a sword and I have a shield and I'm keeping everything in tight so I'm not bumping my neighbor. And then when the new ones came out in that Start Collecting box for Slaves to Darkness, those Chaos Warriors are definitely like man spreading. They're all over the place. I got this flailing this flail over here, and I got my shield way up out of the way for, it's not protecting anything when it's up here. I don't know why it is. Oops, I almost knocked that off the wall. But yeah, they definitely spread out a lot more. And I'm looking forward to hopefully them doing a little bit of that with the Skaven eventually, but not yet. Just got here. MCP is so sweet. Models are fun to paint, and the gameplay is awesome. I have been watching your show forever. I think you should really like the game. Like I said, I think I might try some painting. I mean, obviously I got to build first. And I've heard some things about the core box that the building is not awesome. But I've heard that some of the newer models are easier to build. So, I don't know. We'll see how that goes first. But, yeah. I know you don't speak much about Middle Earth, but I want to give my Haradrim desert sand bases. I believe once you mentioned that baking soda creates little waves like the winds across the sand dunes. It can. Sadly, it's not something you can depend on. You could start testing and see what you get, but what I've found is that if you put excess glue on there, CA glue, onto the base, so you've got a base and you've added probably more CA glue than you normally would, and then you sprinkle the baking powder on there, sometimes it will dry and it gives it little kind of ridges that look like little tiny sand dunes or something like that. When the wind blows across the sand, or even sometimes the snow, it'll do that. And you'll get these little kind of ripples. But like I said, it's not a thing you seem to be able to depend upon. Kind of like those crackle bases. Like if you put the crackle paint on there real thick, it's supposed to crackle more, but sometimes it just doesn't. I don't know. So if you're really, really looking for that look, and you really want that kind of rippled kind of look, I swear that I have seen resin bases out there that do that, but I don't remember who. So if you start looking for resin bases desert, that might work. But yeah, I'm not sure of. My 10-year-old is really into Star Wars. I picked up the X-Wing core set to try out. It seems really simple. I mean, X-Wing is it's a very cool game. I played for quite a while. I played until they decided to go to second edition or whatever, and then I stopped playing. Well, that's not true. Me and a friend continued to play first edition. So we haven't played in a while because of COVID mainly. But when we were playing still first edition, even though everybody else had moved on to second edition. But that was fine. But yeah. The oldest Skaven model is from like 1992. If a model is almost as old as I am, you should be embarrassed to charge money for it. Yeah. It's interesting too, because GW, like, there are certain models, like all the new models that come out in clamshells, like the single models where it comes in that little plastic thing that hangs on the hook. They will come out, like, new ones are all like $35. But you can still go out and find in the exact same new packaging clamshells. They used to call him the Nurgle Chaos Lord, but now they call him something else, like Lord of Decay, maybe? But he's like the fat kind of like Nurgle guy. He's holding the axe, and part of his like guts are dripping over the handle of his axe and stuff like that. I've built and painted him 3 times now. I originally did a sci-fi version for 40K, which was known as Old Drippy. And then there was a version of him that I used for Age of Sigmar, who I basically built and painted him pretty much just like exactly like, well, not maybe a paint, but I built him exactly the way he's supposed to be built. I didn't modify him at all. Whereas the sci-fi one, I put a chaos backpack on him and all that kind of stuff. And then the most recent one I did a my Devout for Rain and Hell. I used that model to make an Executioner Devout for my brokers. And but that model is still retails for like $18. It's just, it's been out for a long time, but it's still a great plastic model. I don't even know that it needs an update. I'm just amazed that they haven't updated the price. I guess that's my point. And then maybe it's just because it's old and they just are like, well, we probably shouldn't. But I'm like, you update the prices on lots of other stuff. Like that and the Karen Wraith. Those models are still, they're still putting those things out there. You can still buy them in the new packaging. They're still super cheap, 18 to $20, which is why generally if I see them in a store, I will pick them up. Because I'm like, I'm going to use this eventually for something. I may have gone overboard on that Nurgle guy. I think I have at least 5 of him beyond the 3 that I've already done. Probably next time I bump into him at a store, I should not buy him. But it's one of my favorite models. So I don't know. Yep, the early models for MCP were not fun to build. Yeah, that is a bit of a concern. MCP is still not as bad as Malifaux. Yeah, I can understand that. Secret weapons have sand bases. Yeah, are they? I don't know if they're still in business, unfortunately. I don't know about that. But yeah, I believe that it did, yes. Just recently tried the CA glue and baking tricks. Really happy with how they came out. Yeah, no, I've generally, like, if I need something that looks like sand, like I did, like I said, all my Star Wars Galactic Empire guys, Stormtrooper era, Darth Vader era, etc. I did all the bases on that stuff using CA glue and baking soda, and then painted them desert. And they look great. I mean, it looks like desert. It really works well. For all of my Warcry stuff, I've been using the fine basing texture from Monument Hobbies, the Pro Acryl stuff. But it's just because that's the look that I want. And so to keep everybody kind of on the same page, I just keep using the same stuff. And I like that stuff a ton too, but it doesn't make as fine of a texture as baking soda on top of CA glue does, because just baking soda is so tiny, so fine, But I'm not, like I said, I'm not looking for desert or ash. I'm looking for kind of like chunky, muddy, kind of grungy, weird 8 points dirt or whatever they call it, Marvel Crisis Protocol is very token heavy. Yeah, no, that's true too. I know. I mean, yeah. Sometimes that is an issue. Sometimes I look at games and I go, that's too much. Like I feel like there's too many tokens, but it depends on the game, I guess. Yeah. Just paint sand and really. I just paint sand texture paint really thick so I can sculpt it. Yeah, that can kind of work. The only thing is, if you put sand on a base that's supposed to be for sand, it doesn't look like sand, because the actual grains of sand to scale for a guy who's only this high look like gravel, and like big gravel, like that gravel you see running along the train tracks, which is that big chunky gravel. To make something look like sand, you need a much finer powder, which is why I started using, like I said, baking soda on top of CA glue. I've never tried it on plastic glue. I don't really use plastic glue that much, but I've never tried it on plastic glue. I don't think it would work the same way. I don't think so. For Rank and Flank, my son, Greyjoy, and myself, Night's Watch, both have fun with A Song of Ice and Fire, which makes sense when you say Greyjoy and Night's Watch. It'd be weird if you get, if you mentioned Greyjoy and Night's Watch and then it turned out you were playing Kings of War. That'd be weird. But anyway, I see what you're saying. But that is the only Rank and Flank game we play. I love playing one-page rules for 40K-ish playing. Yeah, I know that a lot of people dig, well, I don't know anybody around my area that plays Song of Ice and Fire except Sam likes it. And I don't know if he's got anybody he's been playing it with lately, but I know he's a big fan. And I know that like Miniac is a fan, and there are different areas of the country where I think it's probably very popular or less popular here and there, depending. That's just the same with pretty much any game. But yeah, I have not. Again, because I'm not a rank and flank guy, I'm not super into it. Poof. All right. Coffee and the GW Abaddon Black do a cool cracked ground effect. I've never tried like used coffee grounds or not used coffee grounds. I haven't tried that. Surely it wouldn't work with plastic glue at all. I wouldn't think so. There's something in super glue and baking powder or baking soda, sorry, that like the baking soda catalyzes it somehow or something like that. So I don't think it would work with plastic glue. I bought some stuff from Secret Weapon just a couple of months ago, and their site is still live, so they might just be running low, running down their stock. That's possible, yeah. Beach sand from AK, it's like a filler, way more realistic than sand particles the size of rocks. Yeah, yeah. Looks like the only gray I have at home that isn't contrast is Celestra gray. That's hard to say. Oh no, I have to go buy some paints. Oh no, that's terrible. Thoughts and prayers. I like to add a couple larger pieces, tiny pebbles or walnut shell chips on top of fine playground sand. The contrasting sizes help distract from the sand grains. Yeah, I generally use kitty litter. I've got like, if I want something to look a little more like rocks, then I'll sprinkle some little pieces of kitty litter onto it, glue. Put some CA glue down and then kitty litter. I don't know if I've ever used PVA glue to keep my basing material on my base. It just feels like it's going to peel off at some point because you can peel it off your fingers really easy. I just feel like at some point it's going to peel off the plastic of the base. That's why I've always textured with CA glue instead, which is more expensive, but not by a lot, I guess. At least I don't think so. I guess if I was doing huge armies, it would be a bigger difference, but. Uncle Adam, I'm thinking of trying the contrast paints over Zenithal technique, but what if the colors I need are not part of the contrast range, e.g. Cantor Blue or Crimson Fists, or 4 Crimson Fists? I mean, one thing you could try, and I don't know the exact answer to this, but there is what they call a contrast medium, and you could try to mix your very, very specific Cantor Blue or whatever with the contrast medium. You're going to want to test this on a model you're not going to necessarily put on your army, and then try to use that, because from what I've been told, there are ways, if you use that contrast medium, part of it can be, the nice thing about it is that it can actually turn regular paints almost into contrast, but maybe not quite. But I don't really know the answer to that. I generally don't paint by the numbers specific colors. Like, if I was going to paint ultramarines, I don't know that I would use specifically ultramarine blue. I would use a blue color that's close, but I wouldn't go well, this is the color you have to use because they're Crimson Fists. If you're going to be doing that, honestly, my advice then would probably be to, if you've got an airbrush, get the airbrush version of Cantor Blue and then maybe prime the models black, and then for your Zenithal, instead of spraying white over black, just spray the Cantor Blue over black, and then it will be bright Cantor Blue in all the raised parts. And then as it goes down into the the armpits and between the legs and stuff like that, it'll get down into the shadows and get darker. That's also a possibility. But then you need to have an airbrush, but they're not particularly expensive if you don't want them to be. And then you need to be able to find the airbrush colors from Games Workshop, which are not in every store. So you may end up having to order those. But they do, I'm 98% sure they make a Cantor Blue airbrush color. And then you could just do it that way. And then the benefit too then is you're saving yourself at least a couple of steps, because you're basically just priming, your Zenithal priming, and when you're done, you've already got blue models. Now you just go in and just throw a wash on them, and then you Crimson Fist, you got to paint one hand red, I forget which one, and go through all that stuff, the detailing and the gun and the lenses and all that jazz. But you've already done like the majority of the base painting pretty quickly. Just checking, CA glue is super glue, right? Yeah, basically the same stuff, yep. Cyanoacrylate. I think there's really a chemical reaction between baking soda and CA, but the baking soda soaks it up and reduces the surface area a lot and quickly, so it dries fast. I don't think there's really a chemical reaction. And you're probably right, but I have been told, and I've actually felt this, it does get warmer. Like, I've had people, when I told them about, I use baking soda and And super glue, they're like, well, that's going to melt your bases. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, endothermic, blah, 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 something, science. And I'm like, But I have taken a base and like put super glue on it, sprinkled the stuff on there, and then you take your finger and you touch the underside of the base, and it is warm. It's not hot. You're not going to get burned, but it is warm. So I don't know. There might be something to that. I'm not sure. I don't know. Again, not a scientist. I tried the Cantor Blue with contrast medium, didn't like it. Then I would take a look at the air stuff if you can. Isn't Cool Mini or Not based out of Singapore these days? I don't know. It might be originally based out of Singapore, but I thought it was based out of like Georgia, Atlanta area maybe? I don't know. Or maybe like Singapore is their world headquarters, but like their American headquarters is in Georgia. I don't know a ton about them these days, honestly. The guy who, I don't know if he still does, but the guy who did own Cool Mini or Not, his name was David something, and if you would have told me he was Singaporean, I would have been like, okay, sure, I get that. He's definitely like Asian kind of rim sort of area there over there. That made sense. I think that's due to the texture. Super glue does the same thing on cotton. Interesting. To separate parts using CA glue, toss the figure in the freezer overnight, and the parts will separate early in the morning, or easily in the morning. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Like if you've got, that's one of the reasons why I like to use super glue and not plastic glue, because if I screw up a model, it's not hard to get it apart. Whereas with plastic glue, you probably can't get it apart. Like the plastic cement, what it's literally doing is that it is actually kind of melting both pieces of plastic. You're going to glue this Space Marine arm onto the Space Marine shoulder, let's say, and you put glue either on one side or sometimes you put glue on both sides. I don't even know. And then you stick it together, and it is literally melting the plastic a little tiny bit, and then it's like fusing together. So it's really hard to get apart. So if you're using it for plastic terrain kits, it's actually great because plastic terrain kits have a tendency to take more abuse than your miniatures do. And so that's fine. But the CA glue doesn't. So that means generally if you drop a model, parts will come off. That'll happen. That's just happened to me recently. I dropped a box with a bunch of Skaven in it, my Skaven plague monks, and most of them are fine, but one of them lost an arm. I mean, I found it, but it came off. So I got to glue that back on. And that Storm Fiend, his ankles got disconnected from his feet. So there's the base with feet on it, and then there's the rest of the model with ankles, but nothing else got broken. So I can glue all that back together. It's not too bad. But yeah, that thing about the freezer is true. Also, something to think of, if you live in a cold area, like I do, don't leave your models in the car for like overnight, because then it's like you're leaving them in the fridge or the freezer, and then, yeah, they will get real brittle at the glue joints, so you don't want to do that. Let's see here. I don't know why this scrolling thing stopped working properly. All right. I had a fun way to get my friends into trying out a skirmish game. I got everyone to make a 125-point list of OPR Fantasy Skirmish and just pick whatever they wanted, and they loved it. Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Becoming a gaming advocate to get people to play other games other than just the ones that are the most popular is a thing. It's something you got to do if you want to get people to play something. Like if you're just not interested in playing the popular stuff and you want the less popular stuff and you want people to play with you, you kind of have to provide or at least work towards that to some degree to get people interested. And it's just a thing. So yeah. Cool Mini or Not at least started in northern Georgia. Their game before Cool Mini became a thing was Dark Age, art based on Brahm. Yep, I'm familiar with that. Lots of weird Frazetta like muscles and leather and blades instead of limbs. Yeah, I got into Dark Age, the later part of it, and I built a small core army, which is all robot dudes, and they were pretty cool, and I liked them. And then I just didn't like the rules. I don't know, there's something about them that just didn't work. I was being taught the rules by a guy who's very good at the game, like a tournament player and stuff like that. And he'd be like, "Well, actually, the rule works like this." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's how it works." I'm like, "That doesn't make any sense." He's like, "Yeah, I know." And so, yeah, wasn't really my jam. But the models are still cool, and I enjoyed painting them. I was wrong. Apparently, bicarbonate causes polymerization with cyanoacrylate. So it is essentially a chemical accelerator. And that's why it gets hot, because the reaction is sped up. That kind of makes sense to me. So there you go. Science. Indeed, science. So with that, I think we're going to end the show today because it's 2 hours. It's 11 a.m. in my neck of the woods. I'm going to try real hard to remember before I go to lunch over at the in-laws to come back here and try to fix the ads, because lately YouTube has been basically making it so the first hour of the show, if you watch the recording later, is an ad every 3 minutes, and then the second hour is nothing. Well, there's no ads. And so I don't know why it keeps doing that, but it's been doing it again the last couple of weeks or months or whatever. And so I'm going to I have to go in manually and go, okay, I'm going to fix that. So I'm going to try to remember to do that before I go to lunch, and then hopefully that'll work. We will see. It takes a while once the show gets done for it to process and all that jazz. So anyway, just for those of you who are watching, hopefully recordings of this eventually, hopefully it worked. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming by today and hanging out and chatting. I appreciate that. And I'm still thinking about the whole Marvel Crisis Protocol Lunchtime Rainbow Badger Watermelon, whatever it's called. And I don't know, maybe we'll see some stuff on Twitch. Maybe we'll see some stuff on, I don't know, Instagram. We'll see how it goes. I should probably open the box. So that's really step one. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'll be on Twitch tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central, continuing to paint on some more little rat buddies. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope that you folks all have hope you had a good new year, and I hope we all have a good start to 2022. So that's pretty much it for this episode, and we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.